It is time, Tenno. Wake up, Tenno.
Welcome home, Tenno. My name is Talga Hurst, and this is Warframe. Welcome back, Tenno, to another beginner's guide to Warframe. Today we're going to take a look at the core mechanics to the game. We're going to be looking at damage. Warframe behaves differently than most other looter shooters, or RPG shooters, in that each weapon deals a range of damage types in a single shot, versus the single damage type found in many other games. This allows each weapon to be at least moderately viable against the different defenses of the three primary factions. Let's take a look at the damage types to give you an idea of what they mean. The majority of weapons are capable of dealing all three of the physical damage types in a single shot. This allows a new player or under-equipped player the ability to still deal sufficient damage to mid-level enemies. At the most basic level, these three damage types are effective against one of the three enemy factions. The infested or fleshy targets are weak to slash damage, the Grineer or armored targets are weak to puncture, and lastly, the corpus or shielded targets are weak to impact. Each enemy has a variety of defenses to the different damage types depending on where you hit the enemy as well. For instance, Grineer are heavily armored, so puncture is the damage type of choice. But if I hit an unarmored section of the Grineer, they're still mostly cloned flesh and blood, which means slash damage is now the more important damage type. It is easy to tell if an enemy is primarily defended by armor, as their health bar will be yellow. If their health bar is blue, they're protected by a shield. To further make things interesting, weapons can either come with an elemental damage type or be modified to deal an elemental damage. The four basic elements are cold, electricity, heat, and toxin. And when a weapon deals damage, it adds the elemental damage to the physical damage in its calculations. What makes elemental damage special, though, is the ability to combine the different elements as you see here. And when it comes to enemy resistances, elemental damage is far more complex than the type effectiveness from physical damage. What makes these important are not the base damage numbers, but the status effects. Every single type of damage has a unique effect should the status proc trigger. Let's take a look at a weapon to see what its stats are and how this works in-game. So what I'm going to do is I will showcase each of the status effects and the type of damage that you're going to be playing with. So what we're going to do to start showcasing the different status effects is I'm here in the Simulacrum, and we're going to be going up against a single Corrupted Ancient at level 85. This is an enemy that is incredibly durable on its own, but I bumped up its level to be insanely high. I'm doing this so that way the target doesn't die while I'm trying to deal damage to it, and showcase the different status effects. So let's simulate this, and let's begin. The first status effect I'm going to try and show is the cold status effect. So we'll take a few shots. What we see is the physical damage has procced, and I'm getting pulled in. Physical damage procced, and we saw a bleeding effect, as well as the slash symbol by the health bar. That means the bleed damage triggered, as I fall off. The bleed damage triggered, causing damage over time to the health. We'll take up another few shots at it. He got knocked back from the impact status proc. So it momentarily stunned him, sent him reeling, just like that. I'm going to keep firing. Got the bleed slash proc again. Have to reload. Need the cold proc to trigger. Another impact. Alright. The gold sparkles. That is a puncture status proc. What that means is his damage is going to be reduced by a small percentage. which is good news for me, but not the ideal status proc. There's the cold proc. He gets an icy sheen, his movement speed and attack speed are reduced. So I'm going to hop back to the computer panel here, get ammo and energy and health back, and we'll put on a new mod. Going down the list, we're going to use this same enemy here, another corrupted ancient, but we're going to be testing the electricity status proc. So I've managed to show you all three of the physical damage, as well as cold. Get pulled in here. And there's the electricity one, right off the bat. They get an electrified texture overlaid on the body, and they are stunned in place for a short amount of time. Go invisible again. Increase my status chance. See? Small burst of electricity, and stunned for about 2 seconds. Another impact proc, slash proc, electricity proc. So let's make our escape one more time, and we'll switch to heat. So up next is we're going to deal with heat damage. Heat damage is simple. It's you're setting the target on fire. So we're going to stick with the same enemy, Corrupted Ancient, try and set him on fire. Now when it comes to the effectiveness of different statuses for an enemy, Infested hate fire. It deals extra damage to them. So they're going to be lit in flames and go into a panic state. So they'll flail around, attack whatever's closest to them, and take damage over time from the flames. And that's what heat damage does. Real simple. So we'll go right back up. Maybe. We'll go back up and move on to toxin damage. The toxin status proc is very similar to the heat damage status proc in the sense that it's damage over time. The biggest difference between the two is that toxin damage will bypass enemy shields and armor to attack health directly. What we're going to do is go against a corrupted butcher instead of a infested ancient. That way you can better see the status proc on the enemy itself. So we'll get into range. Use a melee unit. There's a knockback or an impact status. We have slash on him now. There we are. So he's got a slight green sheen to him now. Almost like a rippling green liquid is on him. That is a toxin proc. As well as a skull and crossbones next to his health bar. As you can see there. So he's being dealt damage over time directly to his health. Now that you have the basics of each damage type taken care of, let's take a look at the combined elements. Now, combined elements require you to take 2 elemental mod cards and put them onto the same weapon. We'll get into mods in the next episode, but for now, as you're going to run into the different damage types in-game as is, we'll take a quick look at each of them. The first combined element is if you combine a heat mod and a cold mod. This will give you blast damage, which causes a knockdown effect. We'll go up against the same corrupted butcher and try and knock him down. So unlike the impact status effect where you saw there, which stuns him, a blast mod will properly knock him down for a short duration. This is great for crowd control or dealing with armored targets. Or mechanical targets. Up next on the list is corrosive damage. This is when you combine electricity and toxic damage to create a corrosive element. What this does is this will permanently reduce the armor of an enemy, allowing other damage types to deal additional damage. The Corrupted Butcher naturally has higher armor than any other defensive stat, which is why his health bar is yellow. So let's go in there and see if we can't melt down some of those defenses. So we've got another simulation running. Standing right there. Take a couple shots at him. What you can see is he's got this green ripple, almost green electrical ripple around him. That's the corrosion doing its damage. It doesn't have a status proc in the same sense that you can see it on their health bar, because it affects your shots individually, and doesn't deal damage over time. What it does do means I'm dealing extra damage to this enemy with my pistol, ultimately dealing a killing blow in one shot to the head. The next status effect that we're going to look at is gas damage. Gas is an undersung hero, in that it deals toxin damage to the enemy target, but because it is a gas, it's a toxin AoE cloud. So it'll shoot a target, and if it procs, it will spread to all targets around him. What we're going to do is, I'm not going to bring out any extra enemies necessarily, but we're going to take a look and see the explosion status effect. So we'll go invisible real quick. And there is a small gas cloud that you can see right there. And now, he has the toxin effect on him. In order to get gas damage, you combine toxin mods with heat mods. If you're combining anything with heat, it's going to have a more explosive status effect. So let's go back to the top and keep on moving. Next on the list is magnetic damage. We get magnetic damage by combining cold mods and electricity mods. This will behave in a similar fashion to corrosive damage in that it will reduce the enemy's shields instead of armor. What makes these two vastly different, though, is unlike corrosive's permanent changes, magnetic damage only deals it temporarily. What we're going to do is go up against an anti-Moa, which is a corpus enemy that has high shields. So as we can see, his health bar is very blue, meaning it's primarily shields. Let's go invisible again, take a few more shots, and there you see the magnetic proc. The health bar has changed to be more red, or more even between red and blue, and there was a magnet sitting next to its name, signifying a status proc. In our second to last status effect, we're going to take a look at radiation. We get radiation by combining heat damage and electricity to create an accuracy debuff on an enemy. On enemies with ranged weapons, this will reduce the accuracy. But more importantly, on enemies that are NPCs, or not player controlled, this will cause them to go into a friendly fire state. It's a way of not necessarily taking control of an enemy target, but their friend or foe process, their AI, goes away. And any target on the map becomes an enemy to them. If you happen to be the one closest to them, they will shoot at you. If one of their allies happens to be closest to them, they will shoot at their allies. So what we're going to do is, I've got 4 corrupted butchers in a zone, and I'm going to try and keep my distance as best I can to show you this friendly fire effect. So we've got 4 corrupted butchers there. and he has a radiation proc. It's this blue energy that raises or starts from the bottom of the enemy's feet and goes up. When it triggers, they will go into a berserker state and attack whoever's closest to them, whoever aggroes them. So in this case, it was an ally that hit him. And I just get to sit back and watch until either the radiation effect goes away, or they die. And last, but certainly not least, is viral damage. We get viral damage by combining cold and toxin mods on a weapon. This will behave in a similar fashion to corrosive and magnetic damage, but more similarly to magnetic in that the debuff is not permanent. What viral damage does is it reduces the target's maximum health. This is a status effect that is incredibly useful against almost all enemies in the game, as it reduces the health of the target, bypassing armor and shields. What we're going to do is go up against a corrupted crewman, who is half health, half shields on his health bar. That way you can get a better sense of what type of damage we're going to be doing to him. We got a puncture and a bleed status on him. Go invisible again. There we are. We have a viral proc on him. His health bar visibly changed, and he had a bacterial symbol next to his name. What it did was it reduced his health nearly by half, but his shields remain unchanged, aside from the damage that I'm dealing by simply shooting him in the first place. Now that you've seen how damage works, subscribe to this channel so you can keep up to date with the Beginner's Guide to Warframe. In our next episode, we'll be talking about mods and how to improve them, as well as improve and add elemental damage to your weapons and warframes. Good luck out there, Tenno, and see you in the next episode.